Welcome. Today we're going to talk about aliens, AI, and Pluto in Aquarius with my guest today, Adam Elenbaas of Nightlight Astrology. In this video, in the intro, we're going to have a discussion about some of the astrology of the weirdness of our day. And then we're going to move on to your sign. I'm going to talk about how Pluto, in relationship to Neptune in 2025, is an absolutely amazing shift of consciousness for you, me, and the world. And I'll delineate how this 2025 transit will impact you. You'll start to feel it at the end of March, all the way through really till October of next year. And it continues to deepen in 2026. So we'll be doing your sign at the second half of this video and interviewing my teacher and colleague, Adam Elenbaas of Nightlight Astrology, to start off. He's done a whole webinar on his website called Aliens, AI, and Pluto, or something like that. And I really enjoyed it. So I thought I'd have him come here and talk to us about it as well. All right, I'm going to pause the recording and wait for Adam to appear in our room. So I'm so delighted to have my teacher and my colleague Adam here today with us, and he is going to share just a little bit before we start deep diving into the aliens and AI and the weirdness we're all going to experience as Pluto continually agitates the sky and brings us into contact with that which we have not known before. I want to tell you, his Kickstarter is something I enjoy every year. I always jump in and get something in the Kickstarter as well to support his teachings. And then Adam, tell us a little bit about how people can participate in your yearly fundraiser and get discounts and all kinds of prizes, gifts and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. And it's awesome to be here again and to chat with you as always. If people want to, if people who are on your channel watch my channel, you know by now that at the end of every year we fundraise to support daily content creation for the year ahead. And that fundraiser also serves as a flash sale for all of our programs and courses. So we have 3 years worth of curriculum in Hellenistic astrology with like a good fusion of archetypal psychological astrology that's woven into the Hellenistic curriculum. We have a 4th year course in Horary, and then we have a bunch of master classes and stuff like that. So there's all of those programs are on sale only once a year through the Kickstarter to help support the channel and a bunch of things that we do, including a bunch of affordable reading and tuition services we provide for low-income folks. And so anyway, if people want to participate, you can pick up the best sales on the year for all of our training programs. And you can find more about the training programs or the Kickstarter on the website, nightlightastrology.com. There's a bunch of other rewards too, so people can check out the full list on the Kickstarter page.
Absolutely. I'll be putting the link in the comments and also in the description box. And I really think it's worthwhile to go check out all the different offerings, because there's some very, like Adam does an overview of the year that never goes on YouTube. And that's one of the options you can get as I like that one myself. I've gotten it before. So. All right. So, Adam, I watched your show that you did for your community, or you're just teaching. I mean, and we can go back and buy the already done class on, Pluto and Aquarius, AI, aliens, and some catchy title. And I really enjoyed it. In fact, I watched it twice. And one of the things that really stood out when I was listening to it was your comment about Pluto, one of the shadows of Pluto being animism. And you actually said something along the lines of, I'll read this to you. Animism is the quality that recognizes that we are in a relationship with the gods, but we need that relationship from our humanness, which means we also need to live in a cosmos that appreciates. I am a living being of one category, and you're a living being of another category, and my dog is a living being of another category. And the cosmos is teeming with life. And we recognize and relate with sacredness to all different life forms, even though there are these things called gods. We don't think of them as better than us. We think of them as different than us. That kind of respect is at the heart of what Pluto will probably have us learning. Well, it goes through the sign of Aquarius. And in our day, we know that the Incans encountered the Spaniards during a Pluto ingress into Aquarius, which was a culture shock, and that they revered them as the return of, their god Quetzalcoatl and the white bearded people that they have in mythology as very important to their cultures. And yet they did think that they were gods when they first met. And there was a massive clash of cultures, right? Or being so disparate in technological advancement. How you see that what you just mentioned in your webinar, how do you see that playing out now that we're having so much going on in the collective about alien technology, UFOs. It's everywhere since Pluto entered Aquarius.
Yeah. It's such a huge question, right? Because that we're at the beginning, so it's hard to imagine what I'll just broadly use the word other, right? Like what others will we meet? What otherness is already here that we're not even aware of? I talked about that recently. I can't remember if I mentioned this. Yeah, I did. I did mention this in that webinar where in the Amazon, there's a long history of relating with plants through entheogens and talking to spirits in nature that I've had firsthand experience of as real. I can't ever take that out of my frame of reference now that there are plants you can ingest that open up different ways of perceiving, and suddenly you're talking to trees, and it's real. Like anyone can do it. If they don't believe me, go try it yourself. Right? That's kind of the, but not
Mm.
saying everyone should go do it, but I'm just saying like you can actually test this. It's not just some special people. This is like a medicinal technology that opens up communication with sentience that's right here in front of us that for many of us is alien or is other. And in the
Mm.
same way that you just mentioned, where the encounter between two different people is experienced as alien and other, it's easy to, when we encounter otherness, it's easy for projections to take place. This is one of the shadows, I believe, that Pluto and Aquarius will bring up, which is here we have Zeus in the story of the constellation of Aquarius with Ganymede, the water bearer. We have Zeus abducting a human being that he is enamored by. And the human being, of course, gets this privilege of being on Olympus. And so there's this mutual enamorment with two categories of being that are just different. And the moral of the story is I've heard it explained by some of my favorite archetypal psychologists. At least one moral of the story is that, and even Heraclitus said this, the gods are enamored by mortality because it gives a sweetness and a taste to life that gods can't have. Well, we're enamored by immortality because we can't imagine what it would be like to live without the promise of mortality, right? So there's a way in which we have mutual attraction and projections of and fantasies of what the other has that we don't have. And I think that we have to be aware of that tendency to project things onto others, as well as the real potential for others to illuminate things that are really beautiful that we can't understand or that we don't yet understand. Um, there's something about being enamored by technology that other people have that one group has that another group doesn't have that is very real. I mean, you
Mhm.
think about we don't most of us would be dead without antibiotics. So there's there's very real ways in which if people are in possession of knowledge or intelligence or technology that another group doesn't have, there's a real way in which we can be really attracted to that knowledge and want to know and understand and advance, and one group can help another advance, and that is a big part of the whole alien, I think, mythology in our minds. And we imagine a race of beings that could come along and enlighten us or help us or save us or something like that. And there's a very real way in which Pluto and Aquarius, I think, could deliver something like that. Like it's literal.
Mhm.
It can also be psychological and it can be human, and there can be things that are happening here on Earth that embody that paradigm. And then, of course, there's the danger of projections where there might be elements of beauty and truth and knowledge and wisdom that can advance or progress the storyline. And then there's danger. There's danger of alienating something, indigenous wisdom that in some ways gets destroyed by the colonizers coming in. So that whole dynamic is really important because obviously Pluto in Aquarius's last stay during the Revolutionary War, the French American revolutions, there's also some really big things happening around those times with respect to genocide. And so the the
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
when one thing comes along and it offers the power to revolutionize, there's often a shadow which will usually have to do with bypassing or maybe even degrading something that's very earthy because it's so
Yeah.
it's so high and lofty. So
Yeah.
the potential to degrade something very earthy is like a natural part of the shadow.
It's interesting when you talk about that because when I think about, AI or non-human intelligence that may be our space brethren or sisters, both the AI thing and the say alien thing, for lack of a better word, they tend to be polarizing because the culture goes into you're like enamored, excited. The space brothers will save the day. AI will save humanity, and then it polarizes everything. The opposite is deathly fear of AI,
Mhm.
iRobot, wars with the robots, or the other element being that these are malefic, demonic entities that we misunderstand them, especially from a traditional religious background, they can be put into the context of the jinn or demons and or fallen angels. So there's like literally this quality of polarity. It's amazing to watch it, but it's not even subtle.
No, right. No, it's not.
It's not. People are
Yeah,
waiting, like, I can't wait for the aliens. Yay, yay,
yeah,
they're here. There's other ones like,
yeah, yeah.
get thee behind me, Satan.
Yeah. I think, for example, of there was a movie that came out, and I think it was in the 90s. It was called Contact. Do you remember that movie?
I do remember that.
Yeah, it's like it was one of my favorites, and I love that when Jodie Foster meets the aliens, that the alien that meets her shows up as her father. It holographs itself into a vision of her father to make her comfortable with the exchange. And the reason I'm thinking of that right now is because we I think one of the reasons that we end up getting polarized by they're saving us or they're harming us is there is a way in which the whole realm of the alien, very much like Ganymede as a special human taken up to the realm of the gods, there's something about our own potential that's projected onto the alien. And so it's like we're looking at a future version of ourselves. And we
Mm.
have to think, okay, am am I the cause of the downfall? Are human beings the problem? Are they a virus? Are we a problem unto ourselves that will destroy ourselves? Or are we our own salvation? And I'm not saying there isn't a literal or real alien other, just that there's this really interesting way in which we're grappling with images of what we might be and what we might become.
Well, yeah, it's shadow work. It's projection rated on Jungian in psychology.
Right.
We project everything onto everyone, or in the four agreements, it's the mitote, the mitote is the thing like I see you through the lens of my history and I don't see you. But more importantly, it's that deeper layer of, especially with something that's unknown, it's sort of like you have to imprint something onto it one way or the other, angels or demons. And it reminds me of another factor. Like during this cycle, the airship thing that happened it was during the Pluto Neptune conjunction in the late 1870s to 1890s. People were seeing airships everywhere. Now, you have to remember they had hot air balloons back then. So a lot of the descriptions look like hot air balloons, although some of them had propellers, which kind of look like the things flying around called drones. But if you read the book by Jacques Vallée, a couple of his books, he talks about Passport to Magonia is one of them. He talks about how it seems like we've had another intelligence with us all along. They were fairies, right? And they had a fairy rings, which could easily be a saucer landing. And then we see, like in the age of hot air balloons, the way they saw these airships for 20 years in a flood, and that was the Neptune Pluto conjunction that was interpreted through the cultural lens, or Fatima, which was actually during a Saturn Neptune conjunction cycle. It had to be the lady. It had to be like a religious interpretation on the ball of light, rather than making it an object of like an airship. So even when you talk about how we have this projection element, are they bad or good? Oh, I know why I thought of that, because you said Jodie Foster and the transition from the fear factor. The alien doesn't want her to be afraid, and
Hmm.
so there's a projection of something that's the human mind can grasp or be friendly with. And I still think that that's still ongoing. I don't think what we're seeing today with what's going on in our skies is new. It looks like drones. Well, we'll just have humanity think that they're drones. You see,
Hmm.
because we all know
Yeah.
what drones are, and it looked like
Yeah.
balloony airships back in the 1800s.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is there's this very real tradition in the Amazon of capturing UFO images from ayahuasqueros in ayahuasca ceremonies. And this is not this is, this is a tradition that pre-exists contact with the modern world. So when I say this, I'm not talking about, you know, your modern American or other, you know, people from other parts of the world going down and studying and becoming shamans. I'm talking about the indigenous curanderos. And when you look at the artwork, like Pablo Amaringo is the great example, his artwork is showing celestial beings, angelic beings, interdimensional beings, and things that look like flying saucers. And this is really, as far as I can tell, because you know, I've watched a few episodes of Ancient Aliens. You know, it's a fun show, but I really, after having enough psychedelic experiences, and I think also about DMT experiences that Terence McKenna talked about, other, you know, psychonauts, the reality is far stranger than we can imagine. You know, I think, there's something about this moment. I wouldn't be surprised in the next 20 years to see more normalization around the idea that there are other beings, other forms of existence, other categories of being that are present, that are here. So they're here. Well, even that is a kind of projection. They've always been here, right? Because maybe they don't exist in the same material way that other things exist. Maybe their forms of transportation or their modes of communication don't substantiate in the same ways that we're used to seeing in the animal kingdom or in our human way of life. But the ayahuasca tradition, like beyond a shadow of a doubt, to me has, you know, established that I mean, because like you can take, I'm not kidding when I say that I've seen hardcore, you know, empirical skeptics drink ayahuasca because I've drank, you know, 100 plus times. I've seen people of all walks of life go, holy shit, there's a lot more out there. And I think
Right.
that, you know, many people don't need a drug for that. So don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think that this is also why we could see astrology, something like what happened with yoga, where yoga becomes more and more normalized. Like anybody at my gym knows what downward dog means. You know,
Right.
that wouldn't have been the case 20, 30 years ago. It would have been thought of as a little bit more fringy and new age, and now it's just a mainstay. I really do believe that divinatory systems like astrology, I mean, Mercury retrograde people at my gym talk about, you know, so I just think that Pluto and Aquarius could also have us normalizing the language of astrology and its way of knowing or mode of perceiving as well,
Mhm.
because it fundamentally goes along with the existence of the other.
Absolutely. And you know, it's so funny because I just did this recently. I was looking at like, as astronomy and astrology are the same discipline in the ancient tradition, right? They weren't either or. And basically the asteroid Urania, named Urania in the asteroid belt, is for the muse of astronomy and astrology. And I put it up there recently as traveling through Sagittarius, you know, because I realized that, you know, when we say astronomy, we're talking about the skies. People are looking at the heavens and the stars and trying to make sense of it. And we have space objects in our sky called drones, end quote, right now. And so it's interesting even just to see the asteroid transiting through the Sagittarius terrain of the United States ascendant. I'm going, okay, this is like the devil is in the asteroid details. I swear these minor asteroids blow me away. I want to show our audience something to kind of complement what you've been saying here. This is Archetypal Explorer. Had this subscription for years, and I'm so grateful for it. So if you guys are into, you know, looking at graphs of astrology, they're wonderful. Is that showing, Adam? Can people see
Yeah,
that?
that's so neat.
Yeah, and I learned about this tool from my teacher Renn Butler when I was studying archetypal astrology with him. And this story really is, if you want to say why we even care about astrology or astronomy astrology, which is the same thing, it's decoding the meaning of a planetary event at the archetypal level. This is corresponding with what we're seeing now. Pluto conjunct Neptune, right? Way back in the day. It's just like late 18, like 85 to like, you know, almost 1900. This peaking energy was the 20-year airship wave that was all over the United States, witnessed for 20 years by Americans. Come on, guys, it's the late 1800s. We're in horse and buggy times. And literally they're trying to say what they are, right? Are they dirigibles? What are they? And they didn't know how to make sense of them, but they had white lights. They report green and red lights, a rotating propeller, or silent. It just is a lot like the drones we're having now, in quotes, drones. But then we look at these sextiles that began to form between Pluto, not in Aquarius, but Pluto. It's still the archetypal energy of Pluto, Neptune, the diffuse, imaginal, interdimensional, oceanic, mystical, confusing, foggy energy. And, Pluto, let's blow out the underworld and show you what's there. And look at the sextile energy, because this energy here in this little part of the sky is Roswell 1950s UFO saucer wave. It's the whole energy of what we were seeing back then, and then it dips and it comes back to Whitley Strieber 1987 to 1990, the whole era. Whitley Strieber, UFO wave hit the United States during this as well. And it starts in the late, this is about 1972 here, 73. There was a whole UFO wave in the fall of 73 throughout the entire United States. This drips into Whitley Strieber's communion, and people talking about UFOs and aliens and everything else in the wake of his 1987, 6 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list. That's how much people cared about this topic. And then watch this massive dip. And here we go into the 90s, the 2000s, blah blah blah. No one's paying any attention, but look where we are now, Adam. Look at that.
There's peaking again. Yeah, there it is.
It is. And that Pluto engagement in the story, but now from Aquarius in a sextile to Neptune, coming into that, flowing energy, especially as Neptune moves into Aries and we see something brand new. So I just thought that is just fascinating because it's so predictable. And Pluto's got his little finger in the pie.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that I remember James Hillman explaining the dichotomy between Zeus and Hades, their brothers, and that Zeus is ruler of the sunny upper overworld, whereas Hades rules the opposite. And one of the things that I think happens with Pluto transits that we don't talk about is that the established order of the cosmos as we perceive it, as we understand it currently, that sense of a coherent understanding of a reasonable cosmos is very Jupiterian. Pluto is that god that comes in and brings things up and brings things into our awareness that are unconscious, that are not yet seen, that are invisible, that are not yet understood. And the eruption of those things, especially when contacting Neptune, where you're also connecting with things that are ethereal, that are interdimensional, that are sort of through the veil a little bit, and that those things have the chance to reorder our understanding of the cosmos and of reality itself, makes just a ton of sense. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that wherever there is the unknown and the shadows and the nocturnal space of Hades, there's also fear. Just like Zeus can engender within us false confidence about how, we're so certain that we understand the order of the universe according to Zeus. Well, Hades can bring up an irrational level of fear, paranoia, or conspiratorial thinking. And so there's this line we have to walk between allowing Pluto to bring things up and out from the invisible into our understanding of the cosmos, allow it to transform. And if there's some confrontation there that's scary, that's normal, that's transformative, that's healing. At the same time, we have to be aware of the tendency during these times to let fear sort of take hold, and then distortions of what is coming up and out are an unfortunate byproduct of the experience. And I think a lot of that has to do with, how grounded can we stay each individually in our practices that keep us centered in our heart, so that whatever's coming up, we meet from the heart.
Absolutely. And something interesting about that? I just remembered, by the way, Gulf Breeze was over here. The Gulf Breeze UFO incidents were right over here. Oh my God, that was a big one. I lived through the Gulf Breeze storylines. Okay. Yes, but it's interesting when you talk about the fear factor. When I was a child, my two sisters and the boy next door were outside playing. It was the 1973 UFO wave. In Northern Ontario, we have no flight paths over this little remote town in the north of Canada. So there's no airports, there's no flight paths, there's nothing. nothing. And we all look up and we see these silver discs, 3 of them. They're quiet and they're still and they're silent and they're gliding through the blue sky. And then in the north of us, over our homes, was a cloud bank, and they disappeared into the cloud bank above a hydro, kind of near where we had a hydro center, for like a major junction for electricity. And the boy next door ran into his house to get his mother to wake up from her nap. Oh, come check it out. But by the time she got out there, it was gone. But what I wanted to say, as children, we were in a sense of awe, wonder, and excitement.
Yes.
Right. And there's something about the mind of a child, unless you know it's dangerous, right? Even a bear could come at you and you'd pat it if your parents didn't tell you not to. We had the most exciting experience of our lifetime. We were thrilled, but you could be an adult and have that same experience and think they're going to laser your house and kill you. You know what I mean? If you had a whole bunch of complexes around the theme of aliens or UFOs.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I just to parallel on that, I remember that there was an ayahuasca ceremony in Peru that I was in, where someone was having encounters with like dark entities that they felt like were aliens, right? I mean, it's subjective. I don't know what's going on in their consciousness. I just remember what they went through in the ceremony. And I remember distinctly that the shaman, who was an apprentice of the indigenous healer, who was American, he said, well, why don't you just ask them what their names are and how they're doing? Like, and it was just amazing to see that turn that happened when there was just like you said, like an innocence. The I Ching has a hexagram. I think it's 25. It's called remaining blameless. And there's some way in which the innocent, naive sort of presumption of goodness. I mean, you see it with animals too, like you just said, with children and animals. Remember we just got Hilda, a big mastiff, really scary. Well, my 5-year-old didn't know any different and wasn't scared of her at all when we first brought her home. And of course the dog was fine with her, because there's just this, there's this openness and this receptivity that's very innocent and kind of pure. And I do think that maintaining something like that without being naive, right? That's the line to walk somehow when we're encountering all of these new things. I think even about that with AI, to be honest with you. Like, one of the things that I've done a number of experiments with will be asking AI, without any context given to the AI, other than draw me a card at random from the major arcana, right? So I'm using it as an oracle. I'm not telling
Which
it the
AI
question.
are you using? ChatGPT for that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if I ask ChatGPT and I say, please draw me a card at random from the major arcana of the tarot, or from the entire deck of the tarot, I've done both. I don't give it the question I'm asking. I just give it that simple command, right? And I have my question, and then I use it like that. I found amazing significance, right? So what is that? What is that? I would say that is the capacity that the sentience of reality itself has to speak in and through everything: a crow, a bird, the water, the cards, the AI. And so if we can at least acknowledge on a very basic level that spirit can use AI, it's not a matter to me of whether or not AI is intelligent or conscious, or how intelligent or how conscious. It's knowing that consciousness itself does not notice the boundaries that we do, which is the exact view of animism. Rocks are alive, trees are alive, AI is alive. Of course, it's all alive, and spirit can and will speak through it. So on that level, I think that we should be very prepared for carrying on as though the spirit can speak through things that we've created, right? Or that, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah, well, and it really lends itself to the old nothing is random, everything is intricately interconnected and purposeful and intelligent, because it's even back in the pre 9/11 day, the 9/11 event happened the night before. The Parrot Lab had random number generators planted in many scientists' homes around the world. One of my friends was one of those scientists, and they collect this kind of data field of decoherence, like when things leave the randomness, like when they go into some a strange order. So less randomness is a like a noteworthy thing. It's not random. It's no longer as random as it should be. It's not a 50-50 on the heads and tail flipping. And those random number generators globally spiked just before 9/11. Now, that's an inanimate object called a random number generator responding and interacting with human consciousness, and human consciousness knowing that something bad was just about to happen, like a collective shock and gasp in advance of the actual event. So yes, AI is a machine in quotes, but it's you can be animated. It can be like the rock that you talk to.
Yes. Yeah. And I think I have a really good friend of mine from DC. His name's Eric Wargo, and he wrote a book called Time Loops. It's fantastic. He's been on a bunch of radio shows and stuff and done some good press on his book. But the book Time Loops is about precognition and the relation between precognition and what he calls time loops. Fascinating, but it reminds me of this too, where even our understanding of consciousness and the non-linear way in which time works that we kind of know, but we don't really understand. That some of these things like AI and other mediums that have this kind of mirror-like responsiveness and the question of, is it alive, is it sentient, is it not? All of those things, especially in relation to things like precognition, I believe could become a really interesting area of exploration as well.
Oh, yeah.
The other thing I wanted to mention really quick is, just as an aside, one of the first major moments I ever had of like an altered state of consciousness was when I was in college, and I was going to a Baptist school. I was an evangelical Christian. I was going down a weird path for a minute, and I was going to become a pastor and all this stuff. Anyway, the night before 9/11, I had a dream journal I kept because of a class I was taking where we were encouraged to track our dreams as a way that God might speak to us. It was an interesting class. And the dream that I had the night before 9/11 that I wrote down in my journal in the morning prior to the event was that I was standing in front of the Statue of Liberty, but it wasn't New York City. It was on a beach. And I was on a beach and there was the Statue of Liberty. And do you remember the Never-Ending Story? Do you remember that movie?
I do remember it, but as soon as you say Statue of Liberty on beach, I think of Planet of the Apes.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, maybe that was in my mind somewhere. But in Never-Ending Story, the Southern Oracle's head, as the nothing is taking over, the face starts falling apart and crumbling. And so it was like a reenactment of that part of the never-ending story, but it was the Statue of Liberty instead of the Southern Oracle, and the face was crumbling. And I wrote it down. I thought that was for me, that was like kind of an initiating moment, because up until that time, although everything in my world was in the evangelical paradigm, I had a distinct feeling that was a kind of precognitive dream. And that was one of my first like truly, psi experiences.
No, that's so cool. So one of the things that happened to me, which is ironic that I was going to mention it, but that I want not to talk all about me because I do that a lot. I'm an Aries,
You're fine. I love it when you talk.
Okay, I had the same thing. I woke up from a dream that day and I wrote it in my journal. I'm an avid dream journaler and I have high recall. And in the dream, I was in the Marriott Hotel in Times Square, because I'd been to that hotel. I did a shamanic dance workshop thing there one time. And I was right back in the ballroom of the Marriott in Times Square. And I was dancing with Timothy McVeigh, the Oklahoma bomber. Yeah. And I woke up and I wrote, why am I dreaming about a bomber in Manhattan in the, Times Square? And why am I dancing with him? And it was interesting as well, because 6 months before 9/11, I dreamt that the trade towers were a year before. Both trade towers were shaking. They were on fire. I'm running down the stairs with other people to get out in time. And wow. I interpreted metaphorically. You know what I said? I said, oh, the stock markets are going to be shaky.
Oh my God. Right.
But they were. The stock markets were shaky, but it had a real meaning.
Oh my God. Wow. Yeah, that gave me a little bit of goosebumps there.
Yeah, but I love what you brought this up, because not only did the collective consciousness have this random number generator pre-gas, but even people who had never had their first oracular moment, like you, it was such a shock to the collective system that you opened up a dormant facility. And I was listening to somebody recently on YouTube. I think he's a remote viewer, but it was a very intelligent interview. And he was talking about humanity is going to go one of two ways. We're either going to acknowledge that we know everything, and we don't need anything else but our inner knowing, and we'll wide open, our third eye, our crown chakra, etc., and we'll become self-knowing and we'll be telepathic, etc. Or we're going to start to think we need another way to get there, and that will be AI, and that will be transhumanism, and that will be looking for an outer source for what we have inner. And when you talked about your ayahuasca journeys and stuff, I mean, to me, I just thought doors of perception. Aldous Huxley is literally, all that does is remove the barriers to your vision, because we have, a dog hears a sound we don't hear, right?
Right.
You take a psychedelic and you can see something that now is out of range of your perception, but becomes in range, right? So there's a
Right.
kind of quality about Pluto this time in Aquarius, coming into that mini grand trine next year, flowing to Uranus, flowing to Pluto, flowing to Neptune. And I'm wondering, with the Neptune feature, if that isn't the opening of a more transcendent awareness for the collective.
Yeah. I always remember something James Hillman said, which he said that was sort of misunderstood about Jung as he was like a student. He said that Jung didn't believe that there was just one collective. He believed that there is, but there's also many collectives. Like there's different collectives in the same way that there's different cultures, there's different groups. And one of the things, while I do agree that this transit could represent big shifts in collectivity itself, the big collective. I also feel like one of the things that happens during Pluto and Aquarius periods is there is some degree of polarization about which collective voice, vision, ideal for the future, what's considered progress versus regress come into conflict. So that's something I'm a little bit worried about. You heard me talk about that in the webinar I gave on Pluto and Aquarius, because of all the Revolutionary War and backlashes that occurred while Pluto was in Aquarius last. But I think overall, I'm hopeful that the overall experience can also, I mean, it can just be like a pole flip, and
Mhm.
that especially with respect to our understanding of the larger cosmos in which we live, I can't imagine being a bad thing.
Yeah, and there's subtle differences too, because back in the American Revolution and then the French Revolution happened when Uranus had moved into Leo, which is all the off with their heads and the guillotines, which are very violent,
Good, yeah, good
But
point.
we still have, yeah, we're having that repeat of, Uranus, Gemini, because it's the United States. Uranus return next year, but in the year after, really. But also the energy of Neptune was in Libra during the French Revolution, not Aries, and it's going to be an interesting contrast, right? And you would think, well, Libra is about what's just and fair. Like, think about, we don't want representation without taxation.
Right, yeah,
F
yeah.
you, England,
Yeah,
So it
sure.
had a different quality because of that Neptune placement. I'm just wondering, historically, I actually had some notes about what happened in the Aries thing. I think it was religious wars or something. Maybe it was a Protestant Reformation, because it's times when we've had Pluto and Aquarius and we've had, the more Aryan quality blended in from Neptune. And so this may not be it may not be as bloody and difficult. And, anytime I think of Libra, I think a lack of balance. Everything goes to one extreme sometimes,
Right. Although Neptune in Aries was the Civil War, so we got that too.
Yes.
Not to sorry, that was like I didn't mean
No,
to go contrary to what you're saying there.
you know.
But yeah, I feel like the potential for people to become fanatical about things that they think are good and progressive is, and I don't mean that like a progressive liberal. I'm not naming any political party. I just mean for anyone to say this is good, this is a value, this will take us into a good future, and then to become crusaders and like ironically sort of intolerant, and for that shadow to come up strikes me as a possibility for both Pluto and Aquarius and Neptune and Aries, because there's such a martyr-like quality with Neptune and Aries
Yeah.
that I get worried about people becoming fanatical about things that they believe are of a higher nature or order somehow.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. Definitely the martyr element could definitely show up in there. And, with the United States election happening, in which the administration was elected in as a anaretic Pluto, a Capricorn, like old guard, dark fathers, Stephen
That's
Forrest. And
interesting.
then now we moved into Aquarius as the swearing in will happen. It's an interesting bridge, between
Yeah.
the two realms. And so we'll see if this administration becomes the thing that needs, like, by the way, everyone listening, I'm not political. I'm Canadian. I don't care about which side wins or not wins. So I have to say this all the time, Adam, but it's like, the oligarchy or the broligarchy or the people in power, the billionaires, the 1%, are they the thing that America wants to overthrow instead of England? Is that what that will be? I don't know, but there's a sense that there's still always a revolution of some kind where you have Pluto and Aquarius. There's always something that one wants to revolt against.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, really well said.
Yeah. So we have a fascinating talk. I thought we go about 45 minutes, and I think we're coming to that. I want to finish off with a couple of questions for you. Have you ever seen a UFO?
In altered states, I'll say that.
Okay. If you had to hazard a guess, just like without thinking, using your hazard a guess moment. If I had to guess, do you think we're going to see solid evidence of non-human intelligence, whether they're interdimensional or otherworldly, by the end of the next year?
The end of the next year? No.
Yeah, end of 25. Okay.
I could be wrong about that, but by the end of Pluto and Aquarius, yes.
Have you cast a Horary chart to find out?
No, that's a fun one though.
I think you should do that. Those are my 3 questions.
That was great.
And Horary, it gives you the answer you don't want or expect.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was so much fun. I really appreciate taking the time. Now, everybody, reminding you, you can speaking of Horary, divination using astrology, the time of your question is the answer itself as the mandala of the sky responds. So Adam has a 3 Horary question package that you can buy as well if you're interested in having some kind of divination by Adam as well in his Kickstarter, one of the coolest features there. And other things like his Oracle Speaks book he's writing, you get access to the back end as he writes his Oracle Speaks, and other prizes and gifts and good things for participating in sponsoring my teacher, Adam, who's the reason I exist today on this channel is because I studied with you in 2018. Feels like a dog's age.
No, it's your success is no surprise. And I'm just really happy for you and happy to hang out with you. It's really fun.
It is really fun. I enjoy you tremendously. I always have. And thank you so much for your time today. This video will be probably coming out early next week. I'll let you know the date. And I'll be pegging in, as you say goodbye, the dreaded all signs.
Right on.
Okay, Adam, you can sign off and I'll just keep talking.
All right. Thanks, Lori. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, so now we're going into what you're going to do with this Neptune story. Just think about this, you're living in a time in which Neptune is moving through Aries, sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. This is a 184-year cycle, 68-year cycle, that's Neptune blending with a 250-year-old cycle. So you have no comparison in your life to what this will be like. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to give you about a 5-minute reading for your sun, moon, or rising sign. Pick either one, all of them. It doesn't really matter because your sun is your career and purpose, but your core essential nature. It's as if this is the soul of who you are. It is the game player in the game of life. The rising sign is the avatar that you choose on the game board of life. The rising is you coming into life, being incarnated, okay, and then having to choose a body and a way you look and a personality, etc. by the time of birth on the eastern horizon, the western tropical zodiac sign. And finally, the moon can be the animating force, the prana chi of your life, but it's also how you feel and think about your life. Like you're either going to say it's half full or half empty, right? Which type are you? That's moon energy. It's emotional, it's mind energy. So if you listen for the moon, we're really talking about how you might feel about the Neptune and the Pluto sextile happening next year. Let's start off with Aries. Okay, so let me I'm going to show you the sky. I'm not going to just talk at you, and we're going to get going. Just before we do, I want to remind you that this wonderful book, The Archetypal Universe by Renn Butler, one of my teachers, has a really great delineation for all planetary combinations and pairs. And we're really going to focus not on the triangle that's happening next year because Uranus gets involved in what I call a grace trine or a mini grand trine. That will be a separate video. Just want to really help us look especially separately at the Neptune and the Pluto energies playing out through 2 different signs in your chart. And that will be the Aries sign and whole sign house, of course, and Aquarius, where Pluto is traveling. So Neptune and Pluto combination together, what can it mean according to the archetypal universe? So the highest expression, and this is a sextile, a trine. So this can bring us into contact, a sextile. Did I say sextile or trine? This can bring us into contact. My brain goes really offline when I have, when I'm in my story. Of course, it's a trine from Uranus. It's a sextile. This is the sextile from, I don't want to edit my video, the sextile between Neptune and Pluto. Okay, so 60 degrees apart is the nature of Venus. And this is indicating us an energetic flow that brings positive development. So in the positive Neptune-Pluto combination, he says the following: the questing human soul, the inexorable drive to reawaken divine consciousness. Can we reawaken divine consciousness in each of our lives? The ongoing interplay of spirit and nature, integration of the sacred and the profane elements of our psyche, serenity within change. So there's going to be a lot of change. Can we find the inner peace? Can we find this serenity within? So then there's a few other little elements he brings in. If it's a shadow, by the way, and even a sextile may play it for some of you as a shadow, you might have a kind of feelings of confusion, obsession, compulsions, a dissolved sense of purpose or willpower, an ebb and flow of realities as the universe eternally swallows itself, and experiences of no permanent peace. But this is a sextile, and I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see the opposite. So we can see powerful religious and spiritual yearnings and urges towards spiritual regeneration, the destruction of illusion, because Pluto destroys and Neptune is illusion, destruction of illusion, the intense and fertile imagination, good for artists, a healing effect of facing dark and powerful imagery in the psyche, the hunger for images, and impulses to find a wider spiritual context for humanity's darkest behaviors, and efforts to understand the interplay between our higher and our lower nature, transcendent Neptune, lower underworld, primal instinctive forces of Pluto. And he has a quote. There's a quote from Nietzsche, who is born with a Neptune, the philosopher Nietzsche, Neptune sextile Pluto. And the words here are the soul of Christ and the will of Caesar. Oh, I love the way he writes on this one. The interplay of spirit, nature, consciousness, and breath, the word and the world, water and fire, mystery and power. I like mystery and power particularly. I really do. And another quote is, for nature is not distinct from spirit, but is itself spirit, inseparable not only from man, but from God. Well, that's because, as we said with Adam, we're going to be introduced to the concept of animism and the conscious intelligence of all things, animate and inanimate. Consciousness moves through all things, is all things. And actually, technically, it's all one. Okay, so we're going to go into your sign at this point. Am I recording? I am. And let's go ahead and do Aries. So first things first, I want you to notice, I'm going to just advance the chart because I want you to see how this looks as we go forward. You can see that around, it's going to be around the 30th of March. On March the 30th, Neptune will ingress into the sign of Aries, and he'll be here till October 22nd. And Saturn will follow him on May 25th to September 1st, and they'll be together here. But I really want to get that Pluto and Neptune energy delineated for you today. And it's a first in a lifetime energy for each of us. But watch what happens. You see how Pluto's at 3 degrees, almost 4, and Neptune's here. And that is an engagement. They are connected. But watch what happens. Watch as this blue line gets deeper and deeper and deeper. See that? Now, if we go back, let me just go here. At the very beginning of this ingress, that's Urania, the asteroid for space, basically, outer space. Let's just call it the muse of astrology and astronomy, but you can just say Urania, outer space. Space aliens, who knows? Pluto, transformation, revelation, uncovering, etc. Well, we see this is very active in the month of April. So it was very close. The two of them are right beside each other, end of March, first couple of weeks of April. And there's Neptune, the diffuse, the unknown, the other dimensions. Watch this tightness increase as we move towards July between Neptune and Pluto. And when we're in the middle of July, we can see that not only is Neptune at 2 degrees and Pluto at 2, and we have a hugging aspect from Saturn. It's not incidental. Saturn will bring things into tangible, realistic form, including maybe seeing a frigging alien or a UFO landing or something clarifying here that we couldn't quite see. We still have Urania traveling in the sign of Aquarius. Watch as we go forward. And now we're in the month of August. We still see Urania now getting closer to Pluto. I should call it the summer of UFOs or AIPs. Oh, UAPs. Really, seriously, look at this, guys. And this is Chiron. We've been trying to heal a chironic war wound in the collective psyche since 2019 when Pluto ingressed here, and he leaves in 2027 because the chironic wound in the sign of war and aggression is connect and pioneering and discovery, and to boldly go where humanity has not gone before. I think that's what we're seeing, the boldly going where we haven't been before. Aries chironic wound, maybe the wound of our non-belonging, our aloneness. A chironic wound is we don't belong. Well, we don't belong because we don't know we belong to an international community of space brethren. I don't know, space sisters. Keep watching. And then we move here, and we're in September. We still have Urania, Pluto, and now Saturn is backed off on September 1st, and Neptune's holding fort, and it's all by himself. And by October 22nd, Neptune exit stage left as well. You'll notice during all of this that Urania and Pluto are hanging out for quite a long time. I'll be doing another video talking about Urania and Pluto in ancient history, but for now, just understand when I see a Urania, I think space brethren. Go listen to my interview with Adam as Urania is going through Sagittarius. The United States is having a unidentified drone wave. All right, so we're going to go ahead now and do each sign. I just want you to see the lay of the land. I'm going to cue this chart, I think, for the time of the ingress, okay, like closer to the ingress time, and then we're going to get started. Now, let me move the wheel a little bit. Well, I'll leave it for now. All right, Aries, sun, moon, and rising sign. And I didn't even advertise anything for myself. In my description box below, everything you need to know about me, plus my all signs bundle is for sale still. And, et cetera, et cetera. There's everything you need to know down below. Okay, so number one, in the sky here, what you're seeing is that you're going to have a Neptune incursion into the Aries part of who you are. Now, unless you're 168 years old, you haven't seen this before. How Aries, sun, moon, and rising are you going to adopt or be able to move into the dissolvingness? Yeah, Neptune dissolves. Pluto, Uranus disrupts, Neptune dissolves, and Pluto destroys. So you're dissolving. What are you dissolving? You could be dissolving illusions, fantasies, confusions. You might also be opening up to more mystical, oceanic consciousness, empathy, compassion, and realms of new awareness. And as you're getting this new energy flooding through you, your creativity will increase, your ability to channel, to get into interdimensional. Your doors of non-ordinary perception may open up wide. If they've already been open, they're opening up double wide. Do you know what I mean? So there's going to be a new kind of way that you can understand life through the lens of the transcendent, the non-ordinary, and the interdimensional, and the visionary. Your imagination is Neptunian. And so Awakened Imagination by Neville Goddard is a must read for you guys, because your imagination, are we made in the image of God or the imagination of God? Your imagination is being activated, and that will be true for 14 years. And as you see the Pluto sextile coming up, and that will be active for you March 30th to October 22nd, you want in some way, perhaps, to go under the surface to discover some deep mystery and some deep power that exists in your 11th house. Well, Pluto wants you to succeed ultimately, although he will destroy what will get in the way of some greater transpersonal evolutionary growth of your soul, but he will not harm you if you participate. In my humble opinion, it's ultimately a win-win. And Pluto in your 11th house may lead to some kind of event or some kind of situation in the time that we're talking about, October through to, let's just say April. Let's make it simple for me talking. April to the end of October, some kind of situation where you must deeply investigate or understand through a knowing something about your life purpose, goals. Because you see, where the 11th house is, it's where we plan and strategize and visionize and imagine and wish what we could experience for our life's purpose and our life in general. And, you know, Pluto is like going to decimate or destroy any long range visions and goals that you may have been holding on to. Your bucket list can change dramatically this year, right? April through October. You might find yourself completely reorienting what it is you thought was important in your life. On a more mundane note, Pluto is indeed death, or the god of death and rebirth, but you may experience the death of a friend. This is your larger social network of friendship groups, and sometimes Pluto's transit through here can do that. But because Neptune's involved, you're going to have a spiritual transformation if that happens. Pluto can make you wealthy over the long run. You've got him here for 20 years, but the wealth you accrue is from the gains of your career and by being evolutionary tasked to a greater, reason for being on the planet. Your career gains are coming from a deep soulful place. And so the first feeling of am I in a soulful relationship to my deepest purpose? And am I using my creativity, my imagination, my storytelling powers, my visionary powers, my intuitive powers in order to move in that direction? Saturn will join Neptune. So just know that some of this nebulousness will clear up May 23rd to September 1st, where now you have more of a concrete feeling of what you need to do and how you need to make some visionary career gains come true. Finally, certainly Pluto here could have you in the milieu of new groups of belonging and new social circles that are enlivening or bringing into greater power your own goals and visions for the world. Pluto up here could also put you in touch with an ally or a benefactor who is extremely wealthy and helps you, especially May 23rd to September 1st, get some of your visions and dreams and goals for what you wish to accomplish into action, into tangible form. So wealthy people in positions of power, powerful people in positions of influence may be entering your life, most likely tangibly so once we have support from Saturn. And that comes up, as I said, into your story, the third week of May through to September the 1st. And I'm going to just stop the share and I'm going to stop and grab a little snack and I'll be right back. Let's move on to the sign of Taurus, shall we? Let me just make sure we're cued for that whole sign system. And we'll move us back to Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Just give me a second. And we'll get rolling on that too. All right, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. My 2025 All Signs bundle is available. You can get that at the ho Santa Claus New Year's price down below, or individual videos are, come on, they're 2 hours long for your sign in 2025. So go ahead and help fundraise for my channel as well as Adam's. It's in the description box below. And I'll pin it to the comments as well. Now, this is your story, Taurus. First time in a lifetime. Neptune sextiles Pluto from Aquarius to Aries, and this is going to open up a door for you starting on the 30th of March through to October 22nd. Pluto, transformation, power, change in your career and reputation space. This is a transit for 20 years that could get you really kind of on the powerful wealth and power track, but can also kind of destroy to rebirth your career. It kind of like collapses what isn't working and purges it, and then something better comes along. And that's a 20-year story. But in the beginning, next year, you're feeling in those, April through October months, that Plutonian energy moving in the direction of Neptune, now in the depths of your subconscious, or your psyche, your soul, your past lives, the deepest mysteries of who you are. This is your 12th house. This is really important transit for really diving into your multiple Akashic records, other lives, family of origin, ancestral line stuff, and plumbing it out, purging it, especially father figures and any relationship to them from your childhood. I don't care if it's grandparents, uncles, or whatever, dad. This is a time for a real soulful, revealing, transformative, healing time. Unconditional love, compassion, forgiveness, understanding the oneness of everything when it comes to a wound, particularly with a parental authority, most likely a father figure, because that's where Pluto is sitting. Now, on a practical note, Neptune in your 12th house is really good for those of you wishing to unearth your addictions and escape from them. It's really good for those of you who are at all artistic in music or storytelling or anything in the film industry, or whatever, to do lots of inner work and projects in the isolation chamber, in your down alone, home alone, isolation timeframes. You might have been feeling with Chiron here since 2019 a little bit wounded around addiction, self-undoing, ancestral family stories, maybe even wounded regarding an addiction or substance abuse issue. And as Neptune comes in here, he's going to allow for miracles, for transcendent awareness, for a spiritual and divine energy to kind of support you in removing those from your life. And Pluto adding to the fuel of that is so powerful. Now, your career can take off, but it's because you're doing the soul work. You might start to feel, April through to October, that by going inward, go within or go without, and looking at yourself at a deeper layer of then your character in the game of life, right? Looking more deeply at who you really are, this sort of awe-inspiring, powerful sense of wonder about who am I and why am I here? There is an enlightenment transit when Neptune moves through this part of the sky, right? So some of you might find yourself kind of finding spiritual awakening as a normative. And interestingly, when Saturn joins Neptune, the third week of May to the 1st of September, Saturn rules your house of religion or spirituality, God, the divine temple of God, oracles, and temple of Apollo, but also deep spiritual traditions. And it's possible you could move into a more spiritual alignment by investigating this summer, third week of May to September, a new spiritual tradition. But it's based in something. It's not like just new age gobbledygook. I mean, Saturn rules your 9th house of, Islam or Sufism or any spiritual community or a tradition that exists, right? And, a lot of ways Neptune is about dissolving something. So you may dissolve something that you have realize is no longer useful because it is a self-undoing. Like, it's your own saboteur. And how can you dissolve the saboteur within you? Alrighty. There's an easy way to do that, maybe. Dissolve the saboteur within you. And consider that you may begin to see through your own actions and behaviors in a new way, so that you can begin to let them go, right? So why do you drink so much alcohol? Why do you smoke or the weed so obsessively? What's going on with your escapist habits? And also a deep soul investigation. All said and done, this is a deeply spiritual time for you. And Neptune will be here for 14 years, Pluto for 20. You're not going to be the same person at the end of this next cycle, right? You have come into some new inspection of self. By 2027, Chiron leaves your 12th house. And that means that whatever this wound of aloneness, isolation, feeling, like you don't belong somehow, or this wound around escapist, self-undoing, and addictive tendencies will be finished, right? Like Chiron will have taught you what you need to know. And that includes those childhood wounds that you need to still deal up and overcome. Gemini, sun, moon, and rising sign. There's sign. I have a progressed Gemini sun. No, progressions are not as good as your regular sky, but I might use me as an example if something comes to me. So Pluto will be in your 9th house of God. He'll be there for a whole 20 years. Neptune has entered a testing 1-2-1-2 from the third week of May to September 1st, his 14-year journey through your 11th house, your Aries 11th house. In essence, you've got this flowing energy between the god of the underworld and the god of the oceans. To me, it feels like there's a strong move towards powering up in 9th house matters. That's book publishing, foreign lands, foreign shores, knowledge and wisdom, academia, going to, colleges and universities, teaching, teaching and learning. And also the third house is powering up in your dharma. What's the purpose of your life? What's the meaning of your life? What's your true north? Why are you here? How do you use your talents and gifts in the world in a meaningful way? And Pluto flows to you, Gemini, so you don't mind the feeling of this. It feels like a power up, not a power through. And Pluto sextiles Neptune, saying, well, pay attention then, March 30th to September 1st, for a feeling of a new desire or energy to penetrate or see through something that is, or dissolve something, Neptune, that has to do with your way you vision your long range goals and dreams for your life, the kind of way you imagine and wish things will show up for you or become for you, especially in purpose and career. There's a dissolving of one old path, perhaps, or one old way. And the 0 degree, by the way, at the beginning, this is a very fortunate beginner's mind degree. And you might just try something new, and find out that you're really good at it. You really like it in terms of, ways that you gain money in your career, ways that you get rewards from your 10th house. By having a career, you get fame. By having a career, you get wealthy. By having a career, you get influential, etc. That's 11th house gains of the 10th house. And Neptune's a disillusionment, and yet is also an imaginator. So I would encourage you all through this summer to imagine deeply what it is that you wish to create that's meaningful in your life, and that your purpose is aligned with the truest reason for your incarnation. And let Neptune dissolve away what elements are not that thing, right? It's almost like do the one thing. Neptune can dissolve away, erode away, firestorm dissolve, he's in fire, away what is no longer useful, burn away maybe, but dissolving is his feature. Saturn joins Neptune and becomes pretty close to him this summer as around, did I say it wrong? Neptune is March 30th, yes, to September 1st, in case I said it wrong earlier. But then Saturn joins him on the 23rd of May through to September 1st. And that brings a little different vibe around the edges of this story. It's like where suddenly you got a tangible result, a dream, vision, goal, imagining that comes into tangible form connected to your career, its rewards, and its gains. So you may find yourself actualizing something that you were dreaming into being from the 30th of March, but then by the third week of May, it's ready to go into real world mode, whatever that means for you in your career gains, goals, and dreams. It's a tough one because these are transpersonal forces. I'm trying to give you a personalized version. For example, to be very practical, Neptune rules Instagram, TikTok, videography platforms, glamour, photography, Hollywood, music industry, right? So it could be very literally your career is going to go into one of those directions, and Saturn makes it darn well tangible and darn well real. Here it is. You see it there. Finally, you've got the manuscript done. Finally, you've got the musical thing finished. Finally, you've got some kind of, but you're gaining from it because your public reputation and your celebrity status and your influence over groups and your movement making powers are up here. Chiron is a wound there since 2013, and some of you might have felt since 2013 you just haven't got your act together. Like for some reason, wounded when it comes to how you experience the gains of your career or your friendship circles. You don't belong. And finally, I'd say Saturn, Neptune, you could belong to a new community that's quite spiritual. Pluto in the house of God, Saturn, Neptune, a mystical, magical, new, solid, destined community that you're going to be coming a part of or creating in 2025. And that's going to be Saturn's job to help you make it real. The dreams come real. So dream away, March 30th, vision away, March 30th through to the 23rd or 4th of May. And then from May to September 1st, make it real. Okay, or the reality will be descending upon you. It will become real. And I'm not really covering the trine yet. That's coming up in another video because it's more complicated. But you are a freedom-loving, inventive, original, and you're ready to break out of any old straitjacket that holds you back, Gemini, because you've got the shock and awe of Uranus moving through your sign in the summer as well. It's like, break me out of here. Beam me up, Scotty. So you're really breaking through and you're really re-identifying a lot to do with what you wish to create in terms of your visions, goals, and career in a deeply dharmic, deeply soulful aligned way with purpose. I could call it the purpose transit, the purpose transit. So you Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Rising people are having the experience here of once in a lifetime new story. Pluto, 20 years in your 8th house of chunky money and deep occult mysteries. And of course, Neptune for 14 years will be traveling through your 10th house of career and reputation. This year, Neptune gets there at the 30th of March and leaves October 22nd. And during that time, you have an incredible energetic going on in your career space. I'm just been double checking that date. My memory says October 22nd. I should have double checked it before I started my video. Yes, it's October 22nd because of retrogradation. So you might want to look at your life now through the lens of compassion and empathy through career and reputation. Like you want to bring something mystical, something fantastically imaginative, and it may involve filmography, video, music, storytelling. Those are Neptune features into the public eye as a part of your career endeavors. You might also just want to become more of a channel, more of a mystic in your career. And this is something that becomes more available to you for the first time in your life this year ahead. And Chiron says maybe there's been a wound in your career space. Maybe you haven't felt quite on purpose. You know, you think you're getting there, you're close, you're not quite, you're navigating around it. You've been feeling out of your purpose zone in career, maybe. The key to purpose has kind of been hard to find ever since when 2019, ending by 2027, eclipse of April of 2024 tried to blow out the problem and hand you the key, and it's still in play until the spring of next year. So you're finding the key to purpose in your career. At the same time, Neptune's adding a different flavor. Anybody who's always wanted to have a career that's like in the creative or the fantastical or the imaginal or the mystical or the channeling that harnesses compassion, empathy, and diffuse borders, if this has been a part of something you wanted to do, then this is a time that it may come, right? You know, he rules Hollywood, you know. Now, part of the energy going on with Pluto in the 8th house, especially with astronomy and astrology, the muse of astronomy and astrology, Urania here, as the muse of dance, poetry, and song as well. You might find yourself, or is it music, poetry, and song, whatever, the muse of the arts is here too. You might find yourself moving into a much more powerful direction in your life. Like, I want to study astrology, astronomy. I want to become an occultist. I want to, you know, move into a more creative, artistic direction in my purpose and career. But it also asks you to consider the wealth that you can accrue here. And so for the first time, there's a deeper, more powerful energy in the house of the esteem of others, the 8th house, that has you looking very powerful, but also potentially over time wealthy. And when Saturn joins the fray in the 10th house and adds to Neptune's abilities to dream something new into being in your career, Saturn adds the 3rd week of May to September 1st, concrete results. So pay attention to what you're wanting to happen and dreaming and visioning and hoping and feeling into, because you might see the first edifice of reality showing up here. I mean, Saturn, Neptune in your 10th house is bringing a career solidity to a more mystical, creative, spacious, artistic thing. Neptune in the 10th house. And Saturn Neptune here could really be putting a backbone on something, like a structural form on something that you've been planning. And it could be very literal. A structural form could be that you're going to, you know, build a new website, that you're going to create a new business model for your story, you know, a new career path model as well. So when I think of Saturn, I think of like scaffolding and architecture and structures that you can use in your way you want to do your career. And in particularly, Saturn is the ruler of your eighth house of chunky money. Is it time to incorporate? Is it time to do your taxes in a different way? Is it time to set up new investment structures from your career gains? And finally, even the way you reach out to your audience and marketplace, new ways to do that, because that, of course, is structure in the 10th house relative to your 7th house of the public and the audience. Leo, sun, moon, and rising sign. Well, this is a, very first in a lifetime, once in a lifetime sextile. Pluto in these signs, Pluto in Aquarius for 20 years, Neptune in Aries for 14 years. This is your 7th and 9th house, 7th and 9th house. So number one, profound transformation in your relationship to your significant people. It mostly is like a marriage type partnership house, but also it can be the house of your audience and marketplace, clients, etc., the public you reach from your 10th. Business partners are here. Transformation, endings and beginnings, deaths and rebirths will be in this part of your sky, Leo, over the next 2 decades. And then Neptune is okay. And what visions, what mystical imaginings, what transcendent spiritual awareness am I capable of experiencing through the house of God? This is a very spiritual place for Neptune to travel. On a practical note, of course, you might study, art, music, filmmaking, anything, sound healing, anything to do with Neptune themes in the 9th house. You may go to school to learn those things as well. This is the god of Hollywood as well. Maybe you'll start to move into more of a glamour, creative arts direction in your purpose, because the deeper meaning of the 9th house is purpose, as well as knowledge and wisdom and learning. Because you have Neptune in your 9th house flowing to Pluto, there is a potential of marrying the parts of your life that have been disconnected, your marriage and your spirituality, your book publishing and your audience, your professorial teaching or learning from a professorial setting, and how you interact with your significant others in your life. Neptune will be joined by Saturn, and Saturn adds something about a backbone of reality here. The real and the time marker, tangible meets the timeless in your 9th house of God on the 24th of May, 25th of May through to September 1st. There is going to be something that you've been dreaming and imagining and wishing and fantasizing about that can begin to take solid functional form in those months of, end of May to September 1st. And Pluto is backing it up, especially in July, from the 7th house, a legal contract that's important to you, a book publishing deal, the formation of a new podcast for your audience and marketplace, an agreement to be going back to school and getting an acceptance letter, or going to school for the first time in a college or university type enrollment. And you may see the most of that happening, yes, when Saturn makes it real, the 3rd week of May to September the 1st. Anything that's going on in that window with Saturn's help isn't just in your imagination and your wishes and your dreams, but it is actually happening. It's here, and Neptune flows to you as a fire sign. And this is also feeling good on you. You like it. Chironic wound here. Do you have a chironic wound with a father figure? Neptune will have compassion and oceanic conscious awareness to help you heal. Do you have a chironic wound about learning, studying, education? Maybe you misfired in college or university. Is it time to heal that wound? Neptune might be able to help you, and Saturn agrees. Finally, the chironic wound in the 9th house is a life without meaning. Have you been feeling in some fundamental way ever since 2019, when Chiron entered here, that you really haven't pinned the tail on the purpose donkey? Because this could also be a profound shift around aligning with one's dharma and the meaning or the dharma track of your life, and finding the way in which your original medicine, as original as your fingerprint and your face print, is here to serve the greater good. This is a humanitarian house. This is a house that is also about one's spiritual true north. And so maybe we'll see some structures of beyond the dreaming of what it could be, putting some things into place that allow for you to experience that. If you want to have a teacher, Neptune here will give you a teacher, but watch out. Like, I mean, a guru, a spiritual teacher, you could drink the Kool-Aid, or a shaman. Be careful. You know what I mean? Wait till Saturn gets there. Saturn gives you the real teacher, the Sat guru, the true guru. So Leo's looking for that kind of guidance, whether it's your therapist, a coach, or a shaman, or a spiritual teacher. You could meet that teacher, and he will be the Sat guru, the true guru, the real guru, Saturn, Neptune. And that will, sagacity is here, wisdom is here. That will be true the third week of May through until September 1st, or the true teaching. Maybe you're going to enroll in exactly the right course that you wish to do. Chiron is a healer, and so you might enroll in healing modalities in order to become more aligned with your purpose. Virgo, sun, moon, and rising sign. It is a sky that tells us that you're having a once in a lifetime, first in a lifetime, last in a lifetime sextile between Pluto and Aquarius in your 6th house and Neptune in your 8th house. Now, basically, you'll have Pluto for 20 years moving through your 6th house, and that's going to transform the work you do in the world and your health. And you'll have Neptune in your 8th house, and it's transforming the way you gain money from your significant other, shared resources, chunky money, inheritances, and taxes. Now, one thing about Neptune in the 8th house, this is a mystery house. This is occult arts. This is magic. This is tarot and in numerology and all of the ancient Hermetic wisdom. And having Neptune go in here is going to expand that into more of a mystical direction for you. In fact, Neptune here is a natural psychic ability, especially to talk to dead people, but it's going to open up doors of perception for sure about what is beyond this dimension. And anybody who goes through this has the option of becoming extraordinarily intuitively highlighted, like your visionary, imaginal trance states and understanding of the world and penetrating between other dimensions with your knowingness is something new for you that can be very importantly exciting in the next 14 years. Neptune here will be a fog bank, right? And the fog bank is in the house of the money you share through inheritances or with other people. So there could just be a bit of a time, the 30th of March through to the 25th of May, where you just feel confused about your money, what you share with your marriage partner, confused about your investments, confused about your tax situation, confused and fogged out about lots of financial matters that are indirect to your main earnings. But then Saturn adds his 2 cents. And that means the confusion can be given solidity, concrete structure, and clarity and sagacity. So very likely any confusion in that area of your life will subside as we see Saturn's participation here. And Saturn is saying, I'm here, I'll save the day, Chronos on the job. There's no time, it's timeless Neptune, it means the god of the Timex watch. And you're going to go, holy man, now I can see what I need to do next, what structures I need to put in place here. It's going to be the 25th of May to September 1st. Some serious clarity will emerge for you. And Pluto keeps saying we're powering up in work. So your work will power you up into more solid financial gains. And Saturn will be there for 3 years saying, and let's give those financial gains in your career structure, form. Restructure the bank mortgage, restructure the loan, pay off the credit card, incorporate, find new ways to share the resources you have with your significant marriage type partner. When it comes to health matters, Neptune can bring transcendent solutions. Hypnosis is a main Neptune healing modality, sound healing. And Pluto wants to decimate or end some kind of health challenge that you may have been going through. And therefore, you could have some really magical and miraculous healings during the window of time that Saturn is complicit as well. And that, again, is the 3rd week of May to the 1st of September to literally kill Pluto, the Lord of Death, a challenge to your health that may have been bothering you for a significant amount of time. Now, Saturn rules your 5th house, and it's possible that the health challenge may have to do with your sexual life, your sexual organs, your romantic stuff, I mean, the part of the body that represents sexuality, and you may have been having some challenges there. So if it's not physical, it could have been emotional, and you may do some healing. The eighth house could be deep tantric and soulful sexuality. And again, some of you may do some profound mystical sexual experiences and sex magic if you want. Anyway, the third week of May to September the 1st. Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. Don't forget my 2025 All Signs bundle is out, guys. I keep forgetting to tell you about it. I should have said something at the beginning, but it's not just the bundle, it's individual signs. You can get them a la carte if you want. Ho ho, Santa Claus sale is on. All right, so Libra, sun, moon, and rising sign. It is a sky that simply says, for the first time ever, you've got Pluto in Aquarius, and it's 20 years of powering up around entrepreneurship, creativity, the muse, children, having children, sexuality, and romance. Now, of course, ask anyone who's lived through that one already before you got here, before it was your turn. Those were the Virgo rising, sun, and moon. They'll tell you they had some pretty profound and dark sides of that too. So you might have to watch out for the stalker, the narcissist, the fatal attraction, the obsessive love stories, difficulties too. But Pluto is here to transform your relationship to love, to joy, to enjoyment, and to really transform your relationship to your family of origin, because this is the gains of the family of origin. And therefore, if you haven't been getting gains because of your childhood and how you grow up, this is a transformation to bring riches from your childhood. So riches from your childhood over the next 20 years, right? Because you've kind of healed or dealt it up, perhaps. Now, also, it can indicate money from a legacy wealth. So you could receive money from your, great Uncle Joe, who's a millionaire, over the next 20 years. But as Pluto goes through this part of your sky and flows to Neptune, there's going to be some stories. And this is energy that you feel the 30th of March through to October 22nd. And it kind of is Neptune in your 7th house of significant long-term love. First of all, it could confuse you at first. You could be in a fog of uncertainty or miasma of illusion, delusion about a long-term committed love story. March the 30th through until May the 25th. And then Saturn comes in and says, I've got the structure and the sage-like wisdom to show you what's true and real. And it may be about your partner. Neptune rules addictions, for example. If your partner's dealing with escapism and addictions or drugs that they shouldn't be taking of whatever kind, alcohol included, then Saturn is going to come in and sober the situation up. And that sobering up of the situation for your partner and their addictive problems, right, would be really obvious to you. May the 24th through to September 1st, a dose of sober realism, not only in and about your long-term relationship, but for the person with whom you are involved, right? If you are involved. Chironic wound in the house of long-term love since 2019. You've had some bumpy roads in marriage and long-term committed love or dating even. You've had some rough patches there. You're healing it now from the eclipse of April of 24, not to worry, and it's done by 27. But this is the last salvo, and Neptune, Saturn is going to give you less fog of illusion and more hardcore realism, dispelling the fog of what you don't see. Now, if you want, you can also use this as a way to reach out to your audience, market, and clients. And this is, the third week of May to beginning of September to give your audience members and clients something solid and visionary. But on the other hand, you could attract Neptune and Saturn people. I could be a director in Hollywood. That could be because Hollywood is Neptune, Saturn is director or producer. So you're going to get people who have form and structure who are also involved in the music industry, the film industry, the the creative industries, etc. Of course, Neptune rules drugs, Saturn rules legislation. So hopefully you're not going to get too many drug legislators coming your way, but it could be things that you want to give to your audience, forms and structures around addictions, and help them with stuff like that. Don't know if you have an audience. It's just a thought. Pluto in the house of sexuality and flowing to Neptune, sacred sex, profane and the heavenly and the earthly, the profane and the sacred meeting. So some of you could, if you meet somebody under Neptune, Pluto energy, and especially when Saturn gets there, third week of May, this is going to be a very powerful, transformative, transcendent, spiritual, story. Go listen to Sting's song, Sacred Love. Okay, that would be all you need to know. And so some of you singletons looking for love could get into that, and existing love relationships can transform to a lot of raw intimacy and depth of connection that you haven't experienced before as a result of this energy next year. And finally, if you're an artist and you do, any kind of creative life, you have creative projects that you're doing, or an entrepreneur, Pluto will up level you to the max in your endeavors here. And the muse is here with him, music, song, and dance. There's a lot of muse. Urania is a muse, Greek muse. Your muse gets all heated up, fired up, on steroids. And it's the perfect kind of thing where you may make a break. Okay, Saturn and Neptune, a break of an agreement, a break of a contract, cutting away from something in a situation that you no longer need, whether it's a business partnership, could be, whether it's a career employment direction, could be, something wants to be maybe gently broken, right? It's a sextile, so that you can move into some empowerment around creativity, around art, around inspiration, around enthusiasm. And all your art and all your creativity and all your entrepreneurial energies are sourced from Pluto. Nothing shallow. You go very deep here. All right. Scorpio, sun, moon, and rising sign. All right. You don't mind this Pluto stuff. You're so Plutonian already. Pluto's naturally the ruler of Scorpio in modern astrology. So Pluto will spend 20 years in your fourth house. Now, other than the fact that almost none of you will get out of Dodge without a family of origin upline inheritance, right? Pluto is bringing legacy wealth here and riches from the family of origin. But you can also get rich in land, property, real estate dealings, land holdings, rich from home, etc., wealthy from home. But you're transforming and deeply transforming your relationship to your mother, to your childhood, to your people you lived with when you were a child, to your upbringing, to your childhood stories, to who you were, to your wounds and trauma in childhood. And Pluto will excavate those so you can heal them. And that's going to be 20 years. Get ready. But your muse is here too. At the beginning next year, this thing is happening, where you start to feel that Urania, the muse, the song, poetry, dance, you're like inspired to be creative in and from your home in a deep, profound way. Neptune is in the house of livelihood. Neptune will be here for 14 years. This is the workspace, colleagues, coworkers, employees, pets. You can get a spiritual pet here. You get a Great Dane who's got like a halo on its head, but Great Dane, because Pluto means big. You're not going to get any you'll get a Rottweiler, a Rottie, or a Great Dane, or a Mastiff. You won't be getting a mini poodle, I don't think. But, Neptune is a transcendent, the mystical and the magical, the interdimensional, and it's moving into your sixth house. And that's going to confuse you maybe. You'll feel a little fogged out, uncertain, maybe almost paralyzed, a little bit, I'm dissolving in your career, work, environment, how I make the money, how I do my career. So you'll feel that dissolution maybe very strongly in the beginning here. This will be the 30th of March through to the 25th of May. But when Saturn adds his 2 cents, now you've got new structures. Technically, you could land a dream job, right? If you're looking for work. But you're going to have Saturn realism and structure and sober-mindedness meeting Neptune fantastical and mystical and illusional. And all of a sudden there's a crystal clarification here that you start to become aware of, end of May to September. This is it. And I've got it now. This is the work for me. This is the service I'm here to give the world. The chironic wound in the workhouse has been here, for a while, 2019. And I'm not saying you were unemployed. A lot of Scorpios I know were employed, but they may have felt like they were missing the key to purpose. And there have been wounds with colleagues and coworkers and maybe falling outs in job settings. But honestly, this is ending. You had an eclipse here last year in 24, or this is the same year, but April 24, it's kind of blowing out that wound and giving you the key to purpose here. And health challenges it was struggling with too. And addictions can also be blown out of the water. Thank you to structure and form Saturn and Neptune. Practically, you could get a job in a Neptunian and Saturnian field. Legislation of drugs, things to do with the metaverse, technologies that allow us to enter another world, AI and goggles and, new ways of being in reality that transcend the norms. And so some of you may move into fields like that. Neptune rules like the mystical and magical, and Saturn is the structural communities around plant spirit medicines and visionary abilities and structures and forms for that. So career directions can change to more Neptunian and Saturnian matters. And that's going to be true for about 3 years, starting in 25. But you see the first evidence of that in this May 25th to September timeframe. If you want to, on a practical, boring note, if you want to move your property to rent something out or to rent something, certainly don't wait for Saturn's help, right? Saturn gets into your 6th house of rentals and rental properties, and he supports that option for you to rent your home out or a home out or to rent a home for yourself as a tenant. Then you're going to find maybe a dream home, dream rental property. Pluto makes you feel powerful, inspired with the muses there. Energetically, it's an Aquarius 4th house. You like air. You guys are better high up, okay? You're better as a Scorpio rising, living above it all, in the clouds, not down like in a flat shoreline mud bank or something like that. And Pluto would double down on that, right? Maybe a very seemingly for the rich people, like a penthouse or something. And so this is a possibility for a rental property if you're looking for one, or you want to rent a place out to find your perfect tenant. That would show up sometime in May 25th to September 1st. That's a yes, 2 thumbs up to go in that direction, as well as get a dog or an animal, pet, cat, lion, hippopotamus. Oh, no, domestic animal. Good time to get a domestic animal in that window of time, right? May the 25th to September 1st. Right here. It'd be a spiritual animal, by the way. You'd have a telepathic connection. Sagittarius, sun, moon, and rising sign. I have to say, you're going to have a lot of Pluto here in their 3rd house. Get ready to see deep and powerful transformations for 20 years in the 3rd house of your relationship to a sibling, one younger, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews, neighbors, and neighborhoods. And also the way in which you navigate your daily life, and profound transformation and profound shifts in identity, maybe through travel and skills-based study and learning. Now, when we start off this story, we're going to notice that Neptune, starting on the 30th of March, will be flowing to Pluto. And there's a sense then that you're trying to conjure some visions about what you wish to create in your life when it comes to romantic love, sexuality, romance, your relationship to your children, to matters to do with your creative projects and your entrepreneurial projects. Neptune is lending a hand. It's really good for Sagittarius who want to do screenplay writing, music, Hollywood, storytelling. Stephen King has Neptune in his 5th house. Look at his stories, right? So those things get activated, but you can become entrepreneurial in a Neptunian thing: glamour, Hollywood, screenplay writing, visionary things, hypnosis, all of that. You've had a chironic wound in the romance house and the sex house since 2019. Neptune is coming in. He dissolves things. He might help dissolve the wound, but it's always going to feel like, I'm melting. Maybe your sex life is melting. Maybe your romantic life is melting. Maybe your artistic, creative, entrepreneurial life is melting under the heat of the Aries sun. And then, in this dissolving and this falling away and this erosion of something that you start to notice March 30th, by the time we get to the May 25th, Saturn comes in and brings concrete structure and brings realistic results and tangible outcomes. So then there's a change of the quality here, where something that you are doing in your 3rd house, writing, communicating, social media platforms, traveling, in relationships with extended family and neighbors, that stuff is transforming, connects to this 5th house of inspiration and joy and creativity. And so when Saturn gets here, there's going to be a shift. You might have been feeling lonely, alone at home, isolated at home, depressed, anxious at home, burdened at home. Since 2023 March, Saturn gets the hell out of your fourth house, comes into your fifth house, the house of joy, structured joy through visionary imaginal realms, maybe. But if you meet somebody as a singleton and you want to start dating, a Saturn-Neptune conjunction means a long-lasting, realistic relationship that's mystical, magical, and soulmatey. And so this for you can be a healing of a wound around love and romance and the person for you as you come into contact with a really powerful new relationship, maybe through travel, maybe through learning environments, maybe through social media land, because we have the hookup to Pluto in the third house. Finally, the fifth house is your natural talents and abilities. Often we call them hobbies, it's your zone of genius. And so there may be this kind of realistic dream come true activation of a natural talent and gift you have. You didn't have to learn it. You may have learned it, but you found out you were naturally good at it as you learned it. So like, what thing did you even know you were good at when you were little, when you were studying in school? Because that natural talent or ability may be being awakened by Saturn and Neptune in your fifth house, flowing to Pluto with the muses here. So really some of your creative talents especially are coming back into the story, coming to life, maybe lost. Go back to these ages. What were you doing at 16 years old and 4 years old? Okay. In 4 years old, what did you love to do in the play pit of the daycare or in your childhood home? And what did you do at 16 in high school that you really loved in terms of, what subject matter? Because those ages activate those natural gifts and abilities. And so you may be going back in time to remember that, and that could help you, right? Yeah. And you can even look to what you were doing when you were 28 years old. Okay. 4, 16, and 28 years old. What natural gifts and talents did you have that you want to reawaken? And I think you can once you get Saturn's help on the third week of May through to September 1st. Okay. Moving on. Children. Yeah. For wounds with your children, any wounds with your children, any relationship challenges with your children, or your child has been wounded in some way, then Saturn and Neptune are going to try to transform that in some way, bring structures for healing of that problem. Neptune is also kind of miraculous and magical ways to heal childhood, your children's wounds, or your wounds in relationship to your children. Capricorn, sun, moon, and rising sign, we have a 20-year transit of Pluto through your second house, and we have a Neptune transit for 14 years through your fourth house. Simply said, you're going to activate wealth. Pluto brings wealth. Pluto brings you in touch with power, wealth, your values around money, wealth, and power and resources. For a lot of people, Pluto's transit to the 12th house, second house, can kill your money and then rebirth your money, right? So you can go through death and rebirth on financial matters over the next 20 years. Now, when we see Neptune here coming into this part of your sky, March the 30th, and talking to Pluto, watch out, March the 30th through to May the 25th, there's a dissolution. There's a fog bank. There's uncertainty. There's a miasma of confusion, perhaps, because Neptune here is waiting for Saturn, who brings the clarity. So don't make major decisions if you can around money, possessions, homeland, property, and real estate. If you want to wait it out, wait for the 25th of May to September 1st, when Saturn and Neptune say, dream home. A long-lasting home structure that's your dream home, your fantasy home. I don't know. That's all I can say. Aries means pioneering, going somewhere new. Neptune is water. Aries is hot, so it's sun. A hot location, a warm location, perhaps. Now, you had a chironic wound in the house of home. This is healing your mother wounds, your family of origin childhood wounds. You've been doing this since 2019, but also a wound of not belonging in the home in which you live, or not having a home to belong to. Maybe you've been mobile. Maybe you haven't been certain about where you should live. Eclipses are trying to heal that, especially in April of 24. And this is helping. So Neptune says, what do you vision? What do you dream for? What do you imagine you want for your home life? Saturn says, form structure. Let's make it real. So some of you will stick the landing on a new home coming up in this window of time, most likely. Let me know in the comments for you Cappies what you're doing here. But this is going to be a probable outcome for many of you in that window of Saturn supporting you on the 25th of May through to September 1st. Now, do you move then? Maybe not. Maybe you plan it. Maybe you know where you want to go. Maybe you find the home. You're going to get this back again next year and the year after. And then there's a thing with Pluto in the second house. It's a decimation of your values, what you thought was important, right? Like you valued fame, success, money, glory. You valued something. You thought this was an honest value. You valued honesty, and now you don't. You valued kindness. Maybe you're going to change. I mean, I'm not going to say that those are some good values, but Pluto is like the destroyer. And so you might have cherished values you took on from your childhood, the chironic wound there, and you haven't questioned those values. Just live with them. You just kind of go like, it's almost like the fish in the water doesn't know it's in the water, right? It can't like see the water it swims in because it's swimming in it. And you're like, what value waters have you been what value air have you been breathing in your second house connected to your childhood? Because Chiron's trying to help you heal some childhood shit. And the Neptune Saturn is going to bring form and structure and transcendence. How can you transcend, dissolve, and then bring new form and structure in from the healing of some childhood wounds around what your values are that you have never even questioned, maybe, because they've just been so naturally there for you. So that's a more psychological approach to what may be happening, especially with Saturn's support the third week of May to the 1st of September. But on a practical note, yes, some of you could change your home. It could be a rental because Uranus is electrifying your sixth house of rentals, but you're going to make maybe a significant stick the landing home change. It could be a rental property. Aquarius, sun, moon, and rising sign, Pluto. We've got Pluto. Go check my Pluto Chronicles at Substack. I'm chronicling Pluto's every move as he goes through Aquarius for all of the world and the world events it might imply, including in individual sign delineations once a month in my monthly newsletter. Now, it's in the description box, Substack, the Pluto Chronicles, and I'm going to be starting a podcast. Now, look, Pluto in the house of you. Look, I always say look when I'm serious, right? I'm actually a visual learner, I think. Look, you can't escape. Pluto is going to be 20 years moving through you as you, right? It's transpersonal, evolutionary, titanic. It's non-personal will and willpower, and it's going to fuse with your identity. And so you become a vessel for Pluto, just like Capricorns did before you, and Sagittarius did before you, and the Scorpios rising especially did before you. Now, Pluto on your sun is a powering up of your career and a transformation, your moon, your home, and where you live. But Pluto on your ascendant is everything in your life, transforms because the character is transforming, dying and being born again. So, as a former born-again Christian in the day, there is something to say about what it's like to die and be born again, to something that you thought you were and you're no longer going to be. I am what? A wife, a mother. I am an astrologer. I mean, maybe I won't be that anymore. So the transformation is coming, and this summer, Neptune moves in. Well, on March the 30th, Neptune in 2025, March 30th, moves into your third house of writing, social media, communications, learning, teaching, traveling, the younger sibling, one younger, the neighbors and neighborhood, cousins, and all of that stuff, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, and nephews, the larger kinfolk. But the third house is also a communications house and an ideas house. And in our modern day, we see it as a social media house. It used to just be magazines and newspapers. It's certainly communicating, it's especially writing. Now, Neptune is imagination, vision, intuition through the crown chakra, maybe the sense of interdimensional awareness. This is a way, though, because oracle scryers and diviners can belong to the third house of the goddess, that you may be opening up a whole new portal of awareness starting March 30th, like a transcendent one, maybe a new way of perceiving ideas, downloading, channeling, communicating with higher forces, interdimensional beings, in the way you wish to offer communications or information or teaching or writing into the world. So you could become a channeler, basically, if you wanted. Now, Neptune rules the film industry. So writing for movies, writing for TV, writing for Hollywood. Neptune rules videography platforms that involve moving imagery like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. Neptune lends power to you here. You've had a chironic wound in the third house of writing, teaching, online media, etc., learning. You've had this chironic wound since 2019. I always tell people about my chironic writing wound. Thank God I'm writing again at Substack. I stopped writing in 2019. My Awakened Dreamer blog died on the vine. And, you know, that's okay. I was done with writing about enlightenment. But I'll say that I'm so happy that as that eclipse catapulted the wound out of my energy field, in April, I've now got my Substack column. So how are you breaking through already? But now we get Neptune, and he says, let's dissolve, let's move something into dissolution, or maybe you're having all these creative, imaginal ideas, and it's very transcendent, but it's not really down to earth. So don't do much. March the 30th through to the 25th of May. It's good to envision, dream, daydream. You know, it's kind of like not real yet. But then Saturn enters on the 25th of May through to September 1st and concretizes something intangible, makes the intangible tangible. What is it that's becoming real? Is it a manuscript? Is it a website? Is it a course you want to learn or teach? Is it something to do with travel plans? But something wants to be made real. And so before the real part comes, you're probably going to be kind of fogged out, dissolved, unsure, maybe kind of like a deer in the headlights, not sure how to deal with all this transcendent energy. It flows back to your Pluto Aquarius energy. And don't forget, remember what Renn Butler said, because if anybody needs to know this, it's you guys. And why? Because Pluto's in the sign of you. You are doing Neptune Pluto. You are breathing and living a Neptune Pluto. The questing soul, the drive to reawaken divine consciousness, the interplay of spirit and nature, sacred and profane elements integrating, you know, serenity within change. You want a wider spiritual context for humanity's darker behaviors. You want to understand the interplay between the instinctive and primal and the transcendent and magical and compassionate and oneness energies. And so you become the vessel for those energies as Pluto looks at Neptune in your third house and asks you to communicate about these things, to write about these things, to teach about these things, or to learn about these things, to study about these things. So possibly one other interpretation of this will be a massive explosion of creativity with the muse on Chiron. And then also Uranus will be in your fifth house. So you might go into this window of time with Saturn support, May the 25th to September, in which you find yourself in some kind of divine inspiration where you're like, the muse is channeling through you faster, like a frigging fire hose of information, faster than you can possibly keep up. So keep up with that idea that you're going to be in one massive creative charrette, SHARET, from the French word for like you're completely immersed, like a divine intoxication in some creative, imaginary, visionary fueled, artistic or communicative or something endeavor. Maybe I'll be writing my book. All right. So there you go. Good luck with that, you guys. Let me know how it goes. Pisces, sun, moon, and rising sign. You're never last and you're always the best. So don't take it personally that you're the last sign in the zodiac. So, one, I've gone through what you're going through. Pluto, 20 years in your 12th house. I wrote the Awakened Dreamer blog because of this, because I had really huge spiritual awakenings, and Pluto can be the destroyer of the illusion of an individual self, the destroyer of an illusion that you're not connected to everything, the destroyer of the misunderstanding that you're not everything. So that's a story that I've already been going through, and I've always have to remember that truth because I get immersed in reality, in the matrix, in the miasma, the Leela, the Maya, the Leela, the play of God. But you can learn the truth with this Pluto transit. And so it's just starting out, and you've got 20 years ahead of you to go through this storyline. Now it starts off with Neptune also moving into your second house on March the 30th. This is a money house. This will bring confusion, uncertainty, illusion. Be careful. This is a swindler transit. Swindlers from far off foreign shores are particularly hazardous who want to steal your money. So be careful for any get rich quick schemes, March 30th through to May the 24th. Then sober-minded Saturn jumps in on the 24th. Tell me, Pisces, in the comments, what is this wound about money, resources, values, self-worth that you've been experiencing since 2019 when Chiron entered your resources house? Maybe that wound also had to do with other people's money you thought you should be sharing, the inheritance money, the spousal separation, divorce monies. Maybe that wound also had to do with your food style or how you think your face looks or your facial appearance. But you've been wounded. And now Neptune is coming in with some kind of dreamy vision. And yet he's not ready yet. He's like, oh, I got this dreamy vision. I got this dreamy vision. I think we're going to make money this way, or we're going to fix our face this way, or we're going to change our dietary style this way. It's kind of pie in the sky, kind of dissolution here. Dissolution of the wound, maybe a financial wound that you've been dealing with, and you have to surrender it or let go, let God. But then Saturn comes in and shores everything up financially on the 25th of May. He'll be there shoring things up financially through to September 1st. You might find that this is a lot like maybe also financial dreams and visions coming into reality. That's a Saturn-Neptune story. But also it's kind of like Saturn is like the Hail Mary guy here. He's wise, structured boundaries and forms. And a boundary planet in a money house is what money do you need to cut into boundaried space? Do you need to get your own bank account and separate it from your spouse? Do you need to separate your money from your children? I mean, where do you need to create some kind of stern, solid, stoic financial boundary or structure, like I incorporated under a Saturn transit through my second house for your financial well-being and your resources and your basic hierarchy of food, shelter, water on Maslow's pyramid? Saturn will give you the form and structure to create it, to make that true, to give you what you need. And Pluto from the 12th house is really a deeper place. I mean, you can make it digital income and foreign land revenue. You can do that. You can make Pluto there people from far off foreign shores and lands. You could do that too, but it's a soul place, guys. It's almost like, it's your Akashic records, it's your past lives. If anything, Pluto can help you excavate your childhood stories and wounds, especially with Uranus, like a lightning bolt flashing in your fourth house. I didn't put it in there. We're focused on the other stuff. Some of you Pisces are going to have profound spiritual transformation around your childhood that got in the way of your finances or your past lives, vows of chastity, vows of poverty vows, breaking the vows, this karmic chains that bind you, the childhood stories that held you back from prospering in this life. Doesn't mean you have to be a millionaire, billionaire. Are you at ease with money and resources? Do they come to you in a way that feels easy and okay? Or is it a preoccupation of scarcity or fear? So something is going to change here. And you'll see the first evidence of that change, most likely May the 25th to September the 1st. It's an inside out job with Pluto in the 12th house. You of all people do hypnosis. Get a quantum healing hypnosis guy like my guy, Shane Robinson. I'll send you to him. Email me. He doesn't, I do referrals for him. He's amazing. He's my guy. Do some kind of soul work. Go to a shamanic journey. Take some ayahuasca. The shamans in the house of what you put in your mouth. Do some psilocybin. No, this is just for entertainment purposes only. I'm not your medical advisor. Check with your physician. But do something to break through the stagnation here. Pluto's purgative. What do you need to purge from your childhood? What kind of catharsis do you need to go through about past lives that are still plaguing you, which aren't past, by the way? They're concurrent lives, but we think they're past because time is an illusion. But in the multi-dimensionality of who we are, we're living lives that are bleeding through to this life, and it may be impacting you. What did you do? Did you pillage and plunder and you feel bad about having money? Were you a vows of chastity monk and poverty? And now you think that being spiritual and wealthy don't go together. Some Pisces have to break through this, and they will. This is your time to shift gears. And with that, I leave you. You're on a journey and a half, guys. But the bottom line is money and resources are shifting. And if you want to get a job in a Neptunian, Saturnian field, May 24th to September 1st, you're looking for a job that has to do with music, mysticism, sound healing, Hollywood, photography, that could be a Neptunian field of profession. Thanks for listening. It's a longer video than I thought. Don't forget that All Signs Bundle is available. This was, of course, because we talked to Adam Elenbaas about Pluto and AI and UFOs and aliens. And so don't forget to check out below for everything I have, all the things I'm offering. This sale that's going to be on right now probably last maybe till mid-January, maybe a bit longer, but you want to get the All Sign Bundle and or the individual signs, 2 hours for your sign is for sale below in my description box. Thanks, guys. Have a wonderful, woo. Wait, I need to beat me up. A wonderful 2025. Pluto, sextile Neptune.